Get ready for Tennessee's next game on the hardwood with our Vols matchup breakdown. We preview the Vols opponent and give you Tennessee's keys to victory here on Vol Basketball Fever. Hello everyone, and welcome in to another Vols basketball matchup breakdown video. I'm Nathanael Rutherford here with Vol Basketball Fever, ready to preview Tennessee's next matchup on the hardwood, again against Vanderbilt, the second time this season. The two in-state foes will face off. Before we get to that though, thank you all so much for tuning in. Please give this video a like. It really helps out our YouTube algorithm and get us more views and more people looking at the channel, looking at our stuff here. So I'd really appreciate that. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. We have all kinds of Vols and Lady Vols content for you each and every week, talking about the games coming up, talking about big news and stuff for both on the Vol Basketball Fever podcast and Lady Vol Basketball Fever podcast as well, which is also part of all the podcast networks you're a part of. Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, you name it, we're there. So go subscribe to us today. And thank you all so much again for clicking on this video. So as I said, Tennessee takes on Vanderbilt 6 o'clock Eastern on Saturday. The second time these two teams have faced off this year. The Commodores and Vols played back in early January, or I guess mid-January sometime. And Tennessee came away with a 68-60 victory in that game. Tennessee's looking to win 10 straight games against Vanderbilt now. They've won 9 straight. And they've swept the season series against Vanderbilt in each of the last 4 seasons, looking to make it 5 in a row now that they've swept Vanderbilt in the regular season. Last time these two teams played, it was a actually pretty close game all throughout. Vanderbilt was able to keep it competitive and close. In fact, it was actually tied up at 60 points all. And then UT closed out the game on an 8-0 run thanks to some made buckets and free throws and came away with a 68-60 victory. In that game, if you remember also, Uroš Plajic got the first start of the season, I guess without being injured, because I can't remember if he started before that due to injury or not. But he was inserted into the lineup and finished the game with 13 points, 7 rebounds, and then also Santiago Vescovi finished the game nailing 3 of his 5 threes for a team-high 14 points. Sakai Ziegler off the bench missed all 8 of his field goal attempts, but finished 11 of 12 from the free throw line and finished with 11 points on that one. For Vanderbilt, you had Scottie Pippen Jr. and Jordan Wright both getting their points, 18 points for Pippen, 15 for Wright. But the rest of Vandy's offense really kind of struggled on offense except for Trey Thomas hitting, I think, 3 or 4 threes in that game as well. That game was really the start of the turnaround for Tennessee this season. The previous game before that one was that blowout loss on the road to Kentucky for Tennessee. And Tennessee, I think, kind of made some changes after that, after falling to 11-5 on the year and 2-3 in SEC play. You saw Uroš go into the starting lineup, John Fulkerson get put on the bench, and really since then, and since beating Vanderbilt 68-60, Tennessee has played a lot better. They've won 6 straight SEC games and 6 of their last 7 overall, with that only loss coming a Big 12 play, technically, against Texas in the Big 12 SEC Challenge, and is a 1-point loss on the road to Texas as well. So Tennessee, again, playing a lot better lately. Since the teams last played, Vanderbilt hasn't been quite as fruitful as Tennessee. They haven't won 6 straight SEC games or anything like that. They've actually gone 3-3 over their last 6 games since Tennessee and Vandy played. But they do come into this game having won 2 straight games and won 3 of their last 4. They've won 2 straight games against LSU and Missouri at home, with the only loss in the last 4 games coming by 7 points, just 7 points to Kentucky. So again, Vanderbilt not played as great over the last, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks, but they've been playing pretty well here as the last week and a half or so. Again, 3 of the last 4 they have won. This year's Vandy team, you talk about, people are expecting them to be really bad again. They're actually not too bad. They're kind of middle bottom of the SEC, which this year with the SEC being deeper than it has been in years past, it's saying more than you might think it is. This year's Vandy team actually has more wins, they have 13, with still 7 regular season games left than any of the previous 4 teams finished with the entire year with. So they already have more wins than any of the previous 4 teams did, and there's still 7 games left in the regular season for this Vanderbilt team. They've been able to find some success through solid defense and just enough offense and some good 3-point shooting, thanks in large part to Scottie Pippen Jr. and Jordan Wright. Vandy is kind of a middle of the road in SEC play in terms of points allowed. They're giving up 70.1, but they've been really efficient for the most part, thanks to a very high turnover rate. Their turnover rate ranks 30th in the country, according to KenPom, at 22.1%, and really good, elite 3-point defense. Vandy has the number 1 3-point defense in SEC play, holding teams to just 27.3% on their three-point attempts, while forcing just over 13 turnovers per game as well. When these two teams last played, Tennessee was just 5 of 23 from behind the three-point line, which is a 21.7% percentage there. Not very good. And Tennessee turned the ball over 14 times in that game. So a little over what Tennessee usually turns it over. And again, really bad three-point shooting in that game for Tennessee as well. Though Vandy has a really good perimeter defense, they really lack a solid interior presence. SEC opponents are making 54.5% of their two-point field goals against Vandy, which is the third highest percentage in league play. Teams have also been able to get to the free throw line a lot against Vanderbilt this season. SEC teams are attempting 21.1 free throws a game against the Commodores. And on the season, nearly 20% of the opponent's points against Vanderbilt have come from made free throws. For reference there, the national average is around 17.7%. So almost 2.5 percentage points more than what the average is what Vanderbilt's giving up on the free throw line. In that game, Tennessee attempted 29 free throws against Vanderbilt and made 25 of them. So they were really good from the free throw line. And that's actually the second most free throw attempts Tennessee has had all season. So they get to the line a lot and made a lot of them. And that was a big reason why Tennessee was able to win that game against Vanderbilt, because they made their free throws. And that's been a very inconsistent thing for Tennessee this year. So they can do that again this game in Knoxville and get to the line and make their free throws. I feel really good about them winning this one too. Two players to watch defensively for Vanderbilt are Scottie Pippen Jr. and Quentin Malora-Brown. Pippen is no more for his offense, but don't sleep on his defense either. He actually averages almost 2 steals a game, both on the season and in SEC play. So he is pretty active on the defensive end. You might think of him just more as a scorer, but he's actually really good in defense too. Malora-Brown is Vandy's 6'10" center who averages a block and a half per game in SEC play. He's not the most dynamic player out there, but he's a guy that, again, you have to watch out for and brings a lot of energy on the court as well. I think Vol fans probably remember him for when these two teams played in Nashville. Switching to offense here, the biggest name clearly is Scottie Pippen Jr., and for good reason. He's putting up 19.5 points per game in SEC play, along with 5 assists per game and 3.3 rebounds a game. He's the engine that drives the Commodores' machine on offense, but he's not the only one, because Jordan Wright is actually a plenty capable scorer and rebounder as well. In fact, the 6'5" guard actually leads Vandy in rebounding in SEC play at 6.5 a game and averages 12 points per game to go along with that. He's really been almost as important as Scottie Pippen has for Vanderbilt on offense this year. Vandy is 4-1 this season when Wright scores at least 16 points, and they're only 4-4 when he scores 10 points or fewer. So when Wright has a good offensive game, it leads to Vanderbilt more than likely having another good offensive game just as a team and winning games. He's also connecting on 40.5% of his threes and attempts about 4 3-pointers a game. In fact, the team, Vanderbilt, has been one of the best three-point shooting teams in SEC play. And this is going to be interesting. This is actually the meeting between arguably the two best three-point shooting offenses in the SEC this season. Here's some stats to back that up. The Commodores have made 37.5% of their threes against SEC opponents, which is the second best percentage in the league in league play. They average just under 9 made threes a game at 8.9. Again, the second most. The only team making more threes per game in SEC play than Vanderbilt this season, that's Tennessee at 9.1. And Tennessee has the third best three-point shooting percentage at 36. So these two teams are in the top 3 in both those categories and in number 1 or number 2 in a couple of them as well. So again, this will probably be a battle of the two best three-point shooting offenses at the SEC right now. But Vanderbilt, again, they kind of live and die by the three. You look at their stats this year, they're 12-4. 12-4 when they make at least 8 threes in a game. And one of those 4 losses actually came against Tennessee when these teams last played. They're just 1-6 though when making 7 or fewer threes. So 12-4 if they make 8 or more, 1-6 if they make 7 or less. Conversely, Tennessee this season has allowed a team to make 8 threes just 9 times, and they are 6-3 in those contests. So still a winning record, but 3 of Tennessee's 6 losses have come when they've allowed teams to hit 8 or more threes. And Tennessee is 11-3 when teams make 7 or fewer threes against them. Getting to the free throw line is also big for the Commodores offense. They attempt the most free throws a game in SEC play this season, averaging 23.5 against league opponents. But don't let that kind of, I guess, scare you too much, because they're actually second to last in free throw percentage this season in SEC play, making just 64.5% of those nearly 23.5 free throws per game. The magic number, though, does seem to be 25 for Vandy, because they are 5-1 this year when attempting 25 or more free throws. In fact, the only loss was a really close one, a 72-70 loss to South Carolina, but they're 8-9 when they get to the free throw line 24 times or fewer. So if they can get to 25 free throw attempts, they stand a really good shot at winning. Under that, it's about a 50-50 chance for them. Like literally, they're 8-9, so it's really about a 50-50 chance. On the year, Vanderbilt's offense ranks about around 115th in offensive efficiency on KenPom. The Vols have only lost to one team ranked outside of the top 100 in offensive efficiency this season, and that was on the road against LSU back when LSU was playing really well at the time too. Tennessee is 11-1 this year against those teams ranked, not 100 or worse on the Ken Pomeroy offensive efficiency ratings. So Tennessee has done really well against some of the, average to below average offenses they faced this season. For Vanderbilt, this is only the fourth game they've played against a team ranked in the top 30 on the Ken Pom offensive efficiency ratings, and the seventh game against a top 50 offense. And Vanderbilt has not won any of those games. They're 0-3 against the top 30 offenses they've faced so far, and 0-6 against the top 50 offenses they've played so far. The best offense they've managed to beat is Arkansas, who ranks 55th currently on KenPom. So again, not a bad offense. And in fact, that number's gone up, I think, more and more as this season's gone on for Arkansas. They won a 75-74 nail-biter on the road against the Razorbacks back then. That's been the best offense that Vandy has been able to beat. Again, Tennessee's offense has been playing a lot better lately, now ranks in the top 30 on KenPom. So that's kind of an interesting one to look at, that Vanderbilt has a pretty good defense, but they've not done well against the best offenses they've faced so far. They've been able to beat up some of the middle and kind of bad offenses, but they've not been able to beat any of the elite / really good offenses they faced. Vandy's defense, since I was talking about them, ranks just outside the top 50 on Ken Pomeroy. So let's look at kind of the top 55 defenses in terms of efficiency that UT has faced this season. The Vols have played a lot of really good defenses. They're 7-5 right now against teams right around the top 55. So 5 of their 6 losses have come against top 55-ish defenses this season. In fact, all but 5 of UT's games so far this season have come against teams currently ranked inside the top 100 on defensive efficiency on KenPom. So they've played, all the teams but 5 they've played this year have been ranked inside the top 100 on defensive efficiency. So Tennessee, and again, here KenPom backs me up here, that is things I've said on Twitter and stuff, they've faced the 4th toughest defensive schedule of the season, according to KenPom. So only 3 other teams out there have faced a tougher defensive schedule than Tennessee so far this season. And again, they're playing a pretty good defense against Vanderbilt, who, again, they're really good at perimeter defense. So Tennessee, I don't know they're going to be able to get off a whole lot of threes and or make a lot of them in this game. They're going to find other ways to score potentially. I feel like every game now I've been kind of highlighting when I do these videos Josiah James, but for good reason. This kid has been on fire lately. He's now had 4 straight games of scoring in double figures, put up 11 against Texas, and he was a big reason why Tennessee was able to kind of start a run in that game. 14 against Texas A&M, a career high 20 against South Carolina, and then 18 against Mississippi State. And it just seems like he can't miss. It seems like, I mean, he's putting up more shots from 2 as well. I think that's a really important thing. You look at his distribution earlier in the year, and it was very 3 heavy. Over the last 4 games, really 5 games, you look back at the Florida game. In that game, he was 2 of 3 from 2, 1 of 3 for 2 against Texas, 3 of 5 in the 2-point range against A&M, 3 of 5 against South Carolina, and 4 of 6 against Mississippi State. So he's gone from a guy who really was shooting a lot of 3s and not really a bunch of 2s to almost kind of a much closer to an even split in that regard. In the last 4 games, he's averaging almost 5 2-point attempts, and he's averaging 6 3-point attempts. So again, very close to an even split, which is not the case at all earlier in the year for him. But over his last 4 games, he's averaging 15.8 points, 4.8 rebounds, 2.5 steals, 1.3 assists, and a block per game. So he's doing a bunch of stuff for Tennessee. He's always been a stat sheet stuffer for Tennessee. Now he's starting to kind of fill it out a little bit more on the offensive end, but his defense has been still just as good as it was earlier in the year. And someone made a really good point on Twitter to me when I had posted something about him earlier this week after the Mississippi State win, that his offense has been the best that it's been, and they said sometimes if you have you're playing really well on one end, it can affect the other one, and it kind of drop off. as good as James has been in offense, his defense hasn't dropped off any. He's been just as good on defense over the last 4 games. And over the last 4 games, he's making almost 46%, of his threes and 58% of his twos. And he's shooting 51.2% overall from the floor and playing in 32 minutes. He's going to be really important. If you listen to the last Vol Basketball Fever podcast episode that I did with my buddy Ryan from Rocky Top Insider, we said that he's probably now Tennessee's most important player with Camwa out. And he proved it on Wednesday against Mississippi State, where he, 18 points, 3 boards, and was just affecting the game in a lot of different areas. But that'll about do it here. In short, I think this is going to be a difficult game for Tennessee, just like it was in Nashville. I think it helps that it's in Knoxville, and Tennessee has the home advantage there. Well, they kind of had the home advantage against Vanderbilt and Nashville too. But Vandy's a tougher opponent this year than they have been in years past, and I think Vol fans realized that last time when they played in Nashville. Vandy actually this season's 3-5 against quad 1 opponents. So they have a 3-5 record in quad 1 games, which I think is much better than people probably expected from them. I know it's better than I expected from them. Then they mean 13-10 right now as well. They're flirting with a 500 record, which they haven't had in I think 5 years. They've finished above 500. So they're a better team. Tennessee should still win this game, especially with the way they've been playing lately. But this is definitely a losable game for Tennessee and kind of a trap game. It's a little bit of a trap game alert for Tennessee because you have Kentucky on deck on Tuesday of next week. So does Tennessee look ahead to Kentucky a little bit? I don't think so, because Vanderbilt is they're an in-state rival. Yes, Tennessee has owned them lately, but I think Rick Barnes and this team knows not to overlook them, especially with the way that game went in Nashville. And it's funny, they played Vanderbilt after Kentucky last time, and now they're playing Vanderbilt before Kentucky this time. So those two teams have been on the schedule like right at the same time for Tennessee, both instances this year. But again, thank you all so much for tuning into this video. Hope you're all prepared for the game. Hope you're all excited for the game again at 6 o'clock on Saturday between Tennessee and Vanderbilt in Knoxville. If you're going to go to the game, be loud and bring the passion and energy, because Vanderbilt probably hasn't experienced too many epic road environments, and Thompson Bowling can be very loud and very raucous, I think is the word I'm looking for. That's probably not how you say it. But anyway, you all know what I'm saying. You fans are fantastic in the home games for Tennessee. So go there, be loud, be proud, scream at Vanderbilt, scream at Jerry Stackhouse, and try to fluster them and hope Tennessee gets to a victory. But give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and go subscribe to our podcast as well. Just search for Vol Basketball Fever on your podcast app of choice, or go down the description down below and follow all the links we have there, and you can get it that way too. Thank you all so much. Again, I'm Nathanael Rutherford, and this has been another Vol matchup breakdown video on Vol Basketball Fever.